Hello everyone, Dr. Sunil Dand, internal medicine physician. I am constantly browsing newspaper headlines from my two favorite countries, the United Kingdom and United States, to get a broad sense of what's going on. And within the last couple of days, the following headline from the United Kingdom caught my attention. This was in the Daily Express, which is a major UK newspaper. Doctors and scientists urge caution in giving COVID jabs to low-risk children. More than 30 doctors, scientists and MPs, that is Member of Parliament, have signed a joint letter to the government's vaccine watchdog urging it to reassess the COVID vaccine rollout for healthy 12 to 15-year-olds following new data showing potentially serious harms of the jab are likely to outweigh any potential benefits. So quite a striking headline and underlying paragraph there in the Daily Express. Let's dive into the article further. The letter has been signed by 12 scientists, medical experts and 21 peers and MPs, including the former president of the Royal College of General Practitioners, a former government vaccine advisor, paediatricians and experts in infectious disease, as well as 21 politicians and peers. So quite a distinguished group of people there that have signed this letter, and it wouldn't surprise me in the least if US big tech attempted to censor this letter, those disgraceful anti-science people that we've seen come to the forefront over the last couple of years. It argues the risk-benefit calculations made by the JCVI and the chief medical officer were based on less than complete data on both the harms and the benefits of vaccinating children compared to the evidence now available. The JCVI is the head vaccine body in the United Kingdom that advises the government. It cites new evidence showing the risk of myocarditis in young men and boys is up to 14 times higher after vaccination than after infection. So I've seen different figures quoted there on the risk of myocarditis, but as per this article, these group of professionals are saying the risk of myocarditis is 14 times higher after vaccination than it is after infection. That's going by the data that they obviously collected and reviewed. And it states that given the high level of naturally acquired immunity from infection as well as the replacement of the Delta variant by milder Omicron, it's crucial that if we are to proceed with the mass double vaccination of healthy children, we are absolutely certain this policy will do more good than harm. It states that the justification for vaccinating children was to provide marginal benefits of reducing time spent out of school due to COVID infection, but it cites new data showing that vaccines are no longer effective at preventing infection with Omicron. Those of you who watch my videos know that over the summer and fall, autumn months, I was regularly talking about what the JCVI was saying and reporting with regards to their recommendations for vaccinating children. It states, furthermore, the negligible risks of COVID infection to children have become even more nugatory if, as it appears, Omicron is associated with less severe disease, whereas the benefits of natural infection rather than vaccination in terms of longer lasting immunity are becoming more clear. And it concludes, we urge the JCVI to review this new evidence and provide updated advice to the government with regards to the mass vaccination of healthy 12 to 15-year-olds. So actually what these doctors and scientists are doing here is, in my opinion, the correct thing. They're taking more data, they're looking at the current situation and advising a rethink based on latest data and research. Then it finishes with a very distinguished professor at a major children's hospital who said the JCVI made a very sensible and laudable recommendation when it advised the government last September against the mass vaccination of healthy children against COVID-19. The committee was rightly concerned about the unknown potential harms of the new vaccines, in particular myocarditis. Since the unfathomable decision of the CMO, that's the Chief Medical Officer, to go against that advice, second doses are now being offered to children despite further evidence of the potential harm of myocarditis. Most worryingly, the frequency, especially following the second dose. Another important point to note here is that the United Kingdom, although it took much longer than the US to recommend COVID vaccines in children, only recommended one dose. They didn't recommend 2 doses initially, like a lot of countries in Europe actually were also doing, only recommending 1 dose. The United States, of course, recommends the full 2 doses. The latest CDC data reports elevated rates of post-vaccination myocarditis for boys aged 12 to 15, 2.5 to 24 times higher in the 7 days after the first dose, and 24 to 228 times higher in the 7 days after the second dose. That's something that we've seen talked about regularly by many different professionals, how the risk of myocarditis is higher after the second dose of the vaccine in younger people, especially young men and teenage boys. So whilst the absolute risks are still low, they cannot be described as trivial, and the absolute risk from COVID-19 to healthy children is negligible. Additionally, the vaccines stop neither infection nor transmission, and many children will have broad and robust natural immunity following infection. I'm afraid the mass vaccination of healthy children is not based on sound evidence. It is time for the JCVI, the CMO, and the government to reassess all the evidence now available and alter its recommendation accordingly. So that is quite an article there in the Daily Express. And what are my thoughts on it? Well, I'd like to consider a few different points here. The first is that the United Kingdom in general has been much more conservative than most other nations when it comes to vaccinating children against COVID-19, certainly more conservative than the United States. They took a lot longer to recommend vaccinating children, and even then it was a more tentative recommendation. And my understanding is that the United Kingdom is still not routinely recommending vaccines in 5 to 11-year-olds unless there is a pre-existing condition. Contrast this with the United States, where they are recommending 2 vaccines for most of those same age groups. Remember, the United Kingdom has only been recommending 1 most of the time. And in the United States, they are mandating vaccines. And I've heard stories in some situations where 5, 6, 7-year-olds are almost being denied the right to go to school if they're not vaccinated against COVID-19. Does the science back this up? Or is it a very strict, harsh, and unnecessary recommendation? That's the question. It would be unthinkable in the United Kingdom to stop children going to school if they weren't vaccinated against COVID-19. The United States is oh so big on mandates compared to their transatlantic cousin when it comes to children and even university college-age students. Now, when it comes to vaccinating against COVID-19 in general, as many of you know, I am not a one-size-fits-all person in any facet of medicine. That simply, to me, is not the art or practice of medicine at its best. I consider everybody as an individual. Every person has their own unique risk-benefit profile according to their personal medical history, their demographics, etc. I'm somebody who has been recommending COVID-19 booster vaccines over the last few months, including to many people in my own family, especially those in vulnerable groups. But I think the conversation in children is completely different. I always stress I do not dispense medical advice in my videos. I'm giving you my own personal opinion. I'm not an authority in public health in terms of having a formal qualification, and I always say defer to your own public health authority, or even get a second or third opinion, because lots of doctors and professionals see differently. That's a wise thing to do. But let me say this. If I could sign that letter with those professionals, that professor at the end, those other doctors and scientists, I totally would. I am on board completely with what they are saying, and I would urge the United Kingdom government in this circumstance, but I would say the same for any authority, to strongly look at data in children and consider the risks, benefits, and whether the current recommendations are appropriate in light of current data. That's what I would definitely recommend myself. Let me know what you all think down below as well. Vaccinating children. Have we really thought through the risk-benefit profile, especially in younger children? Thanks everyone for listening. You can also follow me on locals.com. It is an uncensored platform. Link is also down below. Dr. Sunil Dan, MedStoic Lifestyle Medicine. We'll speak again very soon.